Let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are. But certainly to do justice to this, I have a journalist, Ifeanyi, with me in the studio, as well as public affairs analyst and chartered accountant, Sheson Okwade. It's nice to see you both in the studio this morning.
Thanks for having
me. It's a great Friday, and a rainy one at that.
Of course.
Very cool.
Thank God, at least make it cool.
Okay, let's begin with the blueprint. Blueprint newspaper is where we start from now. Federal government says over 1,400 lost to banditry in 7 months. Federal government says over 1,400 lost to banditry in 7 months. Really disturbing. Recommends a Zamfara peace model and fish out killers. IGP orders Taraba CP and talk to your wards. Masari tells Fulani leaders who are going to train herders on grazing. And at the point there is when they talk about recommending the Zamfara peace model, there was a mixture of a negotiation and amnesty somehow that led to a lot of the bandits now deciding to talk to their own kind and to some extent even fight them to a standstill. All right, moving now from there to News Direct. News Direct is where we talk about, we enter now, and it's talking about security. Bandits set Catholic priest vehicle ablaze in Taraba. All right, federal government to recruit 40,000 policemen, as the IG is saying that, and over 1,400 killed by bandits in 7 months. And the federal government is revealing that. Really disturbing and troubling situation here. All right, moving there to Vanguard. It's still talking about insecurity. It says governors re-strategise to contain menace. That's in security. Gunmen kill Catholic priest in Taraba, set his remains and vehicle ablaze. The kidnappers of those CMD yet to make contact. Family relocates from residence, and enough is enough. Masari warns bandits. And controversy has kidnapped ABU students, regained freedom. And there has been the controversy as to whether it was police that rescued them or it was the family that paid ransom for their release. Southwest Joint Task Force will be funded by governors, private sector, as the Dawn Commission is saying this. All right, that's what you see on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. From there, let's go to The Nation. The Nation is our last paper now, and it's talking about the $9.6 billion judgment. The Federal Executive Council didn't okay contract, says the ex-AGF. Federal government hires foreign lawyers, negotiation option possible. All right, this controversy is still on. In as much as I like us to talk about this, but if you like us to talk about this insecurity issues, especially with the development from Taraba State, where the way News Direct puts it, that bandits set Catholic priest vehicle ablaze in Taraba State. A lot of people are becoming a little more concerned that after all the efforts from security agencies and even from government, this thing is still on.
I think it's quite daring on their part, you know. When you look at what it is that government is doing, you come up every morning, you hear that we've defeated this, we've defeated that, we've arrested this number of persons. Then you hear things like this. I saw a very gory picture of the man, you know, after he had been burned. Then there was a picture of him when he was still alive. And you look at it, what would move anyone or a group of persons to pick up a priest? It doesn't even have to be a Catholic priest, anybody for that matter, and set the person, a human being for that matter, and set that person ablaze. So for me, I'll just say that the issue of insecurity, it needs to be tackled headlong. There's nothing else that we need to add to that.
All right. In one of the headlines, Sheson, the story there said that government to recruit about 40,000 policemen. Do you think that's the way to go, really? Because there's been a lot of talk about ungoverned spaces, large expanse of spaces in parts of the north where it looks like nobody knows they exist. They don't know the presence of government and things like that.
Well, considering the fact that we've had several news about being short-staffed with the police force, recruiting 40,000, well, is a way to go. But what is the recruitment process? What is the passion of the guy that is coming on board? What are the things that you've actually put in place. You see, when you look at the caliber of our police officers in this country, possibly there's a few ones that works in their office. Those on the road are really not encouraging. And we need to get the recruitment process right. If you look at the private sector, what makes it work is that they recruit the right set of people. We don't want a situation where you get frustrated human being. You need to see the way a policeman address you on the road because you are young, you are using a good car, and the next thing is, this has happened to me severally. They will just look at you and say, who owns this car? It's quite funny, as if a young man cannot be successful. So the fact remains that the recruitment process, we are so keen about it. We don't want a situation you take security work as the last option. I don't have anything doing, and let me just join the police force. I know by the time I stand on the road, I can make little mint. And aside that, the welfare of the people you want to recruit is very fundamental. You give somebody a sense of belonging. Why do I want to join the police force? You don't recruit, I'm sure if you want to recruit anybody in this sector, you don't just recruit anyone. You must have the prerequisite experience, what it takes to manage people, the passion of safeguarding lives and property. So recruiting 40,000 people is really not something too far, but what I am concerned about is getting the right people who have passion for this thing.
Well, it's really disturbing.
Where will those 40,000 people come from? When you ask the question,
well,
they're still going to come from amongst us. And that's the truth.
All right. We have to leave it here now. It's really disturbing with all these stories around the number of people who have been killed from banditry in 7 months. But the government is saying about 1,400. Really it's really disturbing. But they are also advising or urging to adopt the Zamfara model, which is working out, and bringing results. A situation where the bandits, the repentant bandits, they were given an amnesty, and then there was a negotiation process, and then they come in now.
For me, Mike, I would not want to hear that. I don't like to hear that word, repentant bandit.
Well, but the point but the point is they are helping to fight their own former kind. So
that's another kettle of fish. They're supposed to pay for the crimes they committed.
Let's leave it here now. Ifeanyi Bule, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Sheson Kwade, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And the Daily Sun is leading with heads to roll over $16 billion power project. And rider EFCC to arrest CEOs for $8.5 billion cash diversion. 4 detained officials released on bail. That's leading the Daily Sun on today's newspaper. Now let's move on to the Daily Trust. How kidnapping is making families poorer. Banditry, 1,460 deaths, 330 attacks in 7 months. And that's from the federal government. Very sad statistics there on the Daily Trust in today's newspaper Friday, and also in the News Direct, another insecurity story saying insecurity, bandits set Catholic priest vehicle ablaze in Taraba. And a rider FG to recruit 40,000 policemen, says the IG. Over 1,400 killed by bandits in 7 months, says the federal government. Now, moving on to the blueprint, it says federal government FG says over 1,400 lost to banditry in 7 months. It seems that's most of all the daily newspapers that we have here. That's what's leading the headline. As a rider on the blueprint, it says it recommends Zamfara peace model, fish out killers, IGP orders Taraba CP, talk to your wards. Masari tells Fulani leaders, and they're also all going to train herders on grazing. That's on the blueprint of today's papers. To the Daily Times now. Imo government, a diversion from security issues. Imo government orders arrest of Okorocha as a rider over assault by thugs linked to ex-governor on chairman. Recovery of government properties committee. We will investigate ex-governor's involvement in the matter, says the police. Now, moving on to the Vanguard, it says that insecurity, Governors re-strategise to contain menace. As riders, gunmen kill Catholic priest in Taraba, sets his remains, vehicles ablaze. Kidnappers of Edo CMD yet to make contact. Family relocates from residence. Enough is enough. Governor Masari warns bandits, and controversy as kidnapped ABU students regain freedom. Now, Southwest's Joint Task Force will be funded by governor's private sector. On the last newspaper for this morning, we have the big headlines talking about the $9.6 billion judgment. Says FEC deemed OK contract, says ex-AGF. And as a rider, federal government hires foreign lawyers, negotiation option possible. But let's look at what trending on most of the newspapers this morning. The matter of insecurity, looking at how the Catholic priest, for instance, in Taraba State, was said to have been set ablaze, burnt, and set ablaze, set his vehicle ablaze. How would you say the federal government is combating? How would you rate the motive of the federal government in combating insecurity in Nigeria?
This is something that you don't even want to think about. Every day you pick up the papers, you hear we're doing this, we're doing that, we're employing X number of policemen and all of that. And these people dare you. They come up with something. They go further. Now you're looking at it. When you single out a Catholic priest who's harmless, that's the way I would want to see them.
Not just a Catholic priest.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be a priest. It shouldn't be a pastor. It shouldn't be an imam. When you single out one person and you pick up that person and set that person ablaze, we have no idea whether he was killed before that happened, and you burnt the person. This is not, it's not a ram, it's not a goat or a chicken as it is. This is a human being. Then you expect that something will happen, some people will be brought to book, but we don't see all of those things happening. We just hear that X number of bandits have been arrested, this person has been arrested. You don't give us a list of what's going on. We talk about insecurity. Of course, I was at an event yesterday where that was a bone of contention, and everyone spoke out. Yes, we look at it, the home has actually failed, and that's why you churn out the kind of persons who come up with very crazy ideas. But then you look at it, you have a government in place that's paid with taxpayers' money. It is expected that they will do everything that they can to secure lives and property. But that is not happening, and I'm wondering where we're going from here.
So it seems that the government is overwhelmed with the insecurity issues. Boko Haram on one end, having to fight kidnappers, bandits on another end. How do you think the federal government can, wade out of these issues?
As far as I'm concerned, they are not overwhelmed. We are not just doing the right thing. We are not doing the right thing. Until we get to the level where we need to pin it by the board. Like if you said, we hear names of people day by day, monarch, this, but there is no severe punishment for any of those things. The new one we are hearing is about the unrepentant people giving amnesty.
Which is example,
repentant bandits.
But
it's quite funny.
They're suggesting that this should be a model to combating banditry.
See, a criminal is a criminal.
Simple.
You must pay for whatever you've done, and you must put something to serve as deterrent. Look at the figures we are hearing in the dailies, 1,400 in a state, and that is just the paper figures. I'm sure there are people that have actually been killed, and we don't have that figure. So if you divide that in 7 months, an average of over 200 families are dying in a state. We are not talking of other states. This is just a state. And the next thing you're saying, you have a repentant bandit that you're going to train and give amnesty to. What happens? What we know, even scriptural, he who kills by the sword should surely die by the sword.
Don't take out the place of negotiations.
What do you want to talk about negotiations? Tell me. Someone sees that some people have done something and they go scot-free, and you give them, they come with repentance, in quote, and you give them amnesty. The others will go behind. They'll go back and go plan.
Even the holy books, recognizes that when a person is recognized his sins.
Well, Sarah, I think we should look at it holistically. That's the truth.
Really not supporting us.
That's the truth. There has to be penalties. When you do something wrong, you've got to be penalized so that other people can look at it, and it will be some kind of deterrent. Because when look at it now, before you know it, this year is gone. We'll step into 2020, and it's the same thing over and over. We just keep going round
on
in
the
circles.
level. before now, we heard that Abuja, Kaduna was free, but they are back there. Because some of the guys that did some of those things there, no severe, we have not heard of a single person being punished. All we hear is that we've been able to get like 5 arrested. Let people say that if you do this, this is the punishment. If you go ahead with this, this is what will happen. And definitely, you see some of these things watered down. But most of the things we hear is, by the time they pick them, they might tell you, is the son or this thing. You start hearing connections here. Now, we must stop this. It's really alarming that you see, in the last few months, I can't travel beyond Ibadan. That's the truth. You can't go to Akure. Everywhere is tight-fitted. People can't go about their business as the normal thing.
It takes 10 hours for me to get to where I come from. I'm from Imo State, Mbise. I have to go see my old parents, but I must find a way to fly down to see them, so because you have no idea what's going to happen on the road.
But what's the way out? If you would suggest, what's the way out?
The government just needs to wake up. That's the truth. The buck stops on the president's table. You see all the things that have been happening. It would have been expected that, look, you bring the service chiefs together, look them, face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and tell them they're not delivering. If you need to change people, why don't you change them? Look at the ministers that he's put together. When we look at it, that's another kettle of fish. We need to look for people who can get the job done without looking for where you're from. I don't care where you're from. The idea is to do it and do it right.
Well, you can't
and that's what we
You can't judge the ministers. They just, they were just sworn in recently.
But the fact remains that you must look at the antecedents. This is not a level where you use ministerial appointment to settle political appointees. We need technocrats. Look, just last week it was trending. Look at Femi Adesina among the G7. These are people we're talking of that can deliver. The footprint of this Minister for Agriculture then is still what we are following in this country. That is bringing things down. We need guys who are on top of the game, not to settle our political allies.
And when you talk about people being on
to
top of their game, we've seen the pictures of the president all over the place in Japan. You would expect that his Minister for Trade and Investment would have been with him on that trip.
But we only saw that
he preferred to go with governors. And one of the governors, the pictures, you have it everywhere, was busy sleeping at that conference. We cannot continue like this. Things need to change. There are young people who are doing things. Yeah, some people watching now will say to me, there she goes, talking about not too young to run. That's not what I'm talking about. But there are young people who understand where the world is going. They're technological, they're savvy. You don't go to a meeting like that and you're sleeping. Even the president who's in his 70s, he wasn't sleeping at that meeting. Then you took a governor who has insecurity issues right there in his state, and he was sleeping at that meeting. It just did not make any sense.
Let's go back.
We need to look at putting square pegs in square holes. And that's what will happen or should happen to when you talk about security. We need to find people who know exactly what it is to fight it headlong. And that's it.
Some persons have argued that its collaboration with the locals is very important. But even the locals, look at the case of Katsina State, for instance. The locals, especially the Roma village, they seem to be helpless. How do you think the locals should be, taking this insecurity issue? You
see, you can't take it away from the local people. They understand their vicinity.
The terrain.
They understand the terrain. So you need one or two of them. Look, I remember vividly in Lagos here, precisely Ikorodu, where there were issues. The local guys, the state government empowered, is it Onyabo? And they were able, because they know them. They know themselves. Some of them, they grew up together and they know what they're up to. So you have to just empower them. And that's why everybody is preaching this idea of community policing. Empower some of these vigilantes so that they will be able to copy it, nip it by the board, and we'll have a safe environment where we can operate from.